$350,000 on this ad account for this one offer for Realty Gen and turned that into $4.2 million in cash collected. You can see in 2024, $1.4 million, 2025 to date, $2.821 million. And throughout the months of March, we peaked around $415,000 a month. You can see January 2024, we took it from $24,500 a month to over $400,000 a month. And how the heck did we do that? Well, it was by building and running and operating in the trenches this end-to-end marketing and advertising system. And it's not just what we did in the ad account over here, or the ads that we made, or the landing page and funnel design, or the calendar booking system, or the setter and closer process, or the data tracking system, or the backend content consumption remarketing process and advertising process, and the organic moat. It wasn't just the financial modeling that's so important to make all of this right. It's a combination of all of this, and all of this is required to get that kind of result. That is why when we work with our partners, we go so in depth to be fully integrated on the front and back end of the engine, not just do something like press a few buttons in an ad account over here. We need to get fully embedded across the entire process to get results. So in this video, I want to break down these exact steps, how all of this works. If you're curious, this is going to be a deep dive. I'm actually going to go through my exact thought process, why we did everything we did. And you can either take that in your pocket and use that for your own business, or of course, if you're seeing this video, we are looking for partners right now to help scale their offers. And I'd be on the front end in the trenches with you on the front end marketing and advertising side. So first of all, this was a cold traffic offer. And the most important thing with cold traffic and scaling, honestly, is the paid ads themselves. I know you've probably heard this a ton of times, and there's a bunch of people saying this, but very few people, a lot of people talk about it. Very few people are actually generating the amount of creatives and creative variations and know the SOPs and processes and the editing process and how to package all of this and make all these different variations to actually scale a coaching, consulting, or agency offer. A lot of people talk, not a lot of people have done it. We went from $20,000 to $400,000 a month doing this. And it all starts with honestly having a great source of creating new ads and working with editors. So we had a full content pipeline where we would generate content ideas, those scripted out, and then I would record them. UGC actors would record them, and we would bundle them all up and get them testing. My favorite ads that we found after testing, a ton of different ads, and this is honestly just a small portion. We tested hundreds of different ad variations. I just didn't want to literally pull hundreds of different videos in here, but if you want me to, I can happily, send you that over. But I found honestly that proof ads work extremely, extremely well. Iterative flywheel ads, which we'll talk about in just a second, direct to offer ads, and borrowed fire ads. So first of all, proof ads, so simple. Package all of the proof from an offer, as much proof as we can, and repackage it in a bunch of different ways, whether that's just strict testimonials, whether that's stating the offer, then testimonials, packaging different testimonials together. There's a lot of ways to do it, but just showing proof in hundreds of different ways works extremely well. Iterative flywheel ads. This is what I really like to do, which is, hey, let's look through all of the winning ads from the last 60 to 90 days and continue to make iterative variations off of those rather than spending a ton of time and resources making brand new ads, which can be extremely successful. With Meta Andromeda update recently, there is a lot of value in making wide variation in ads rather than just making micro variations. Direct to offer ads. A lot of people overthink the marketing and advertising process, but some of our best performing ads was stating the offer, showing results, and click below and book a call. Simple as it can be, we found creating a lot of those works. Borrowed fire ads are probably something we're doing every single month. Borrowed fire, it's a fancy term, but basically we are looking in our own industry, but more importantly, other industries and other big marketing companies, advertising companies, big coaching, consulting, agency offers, regardless of the industry, in taking those same concepts, those same styles, and applying it to our own industry, our own offer, and seeing if it will work for our own offer. So whenever I'm thinking about making new ads every month, video ads, photo ads, I'm using these 4 main ideas to drive our creative testing process. And, testing is so important. And honestly, it is so hard to actually get people that know how to do this process end to end without building a massive team around it. I honestly tried to build a massive team around this, but ultimately it is very difficult to find high-end operators that are actually able to, write good copy, work with the editors, work with the founders, work with actors, and package it all together, get it in the ad account, know the ad account strategy and the back end that's associated with that to make all of this work. So you can see here, we tested a lot. We tested founder-led ads, which is whoever the creator of the offer is. So I'm in a ton of the ads. We had actors, and honestly, female actresses performed extremely well for our offer and for our demographic. And whenever we're looking to do cold paid traffic of people that don't know, like, or trust you, there's a ton of value in doing the founder-led ads, especially if we have a good remarketing and a good organic presence. But depending on your offer, depending on your demographic, getting actors that appeal to that demographic is honestly, like, I'm a younger white guy that might not appeal to everybody depending on the offer. And that's okay. So we like to have strategic actors or actresses a part of cold testing traffic, unless, of course, the founder has an extremely strong brand, an extremely established presence. But even then, it can still work. So that's one of the things that we tested that worked extremely well for front-end cold traffic for generating leads and appointments. And I have all hundreds of these in a Google Drive. If you're interested in actually going through these, just let me know. Be happy to send it over to you. Now, of course, we funneled all of this traffic, all of these different paid ads. Typically we'd be, at the start when we're at $20,000 a month, we'd spend $5,000 a month on ads, then $10,000 a month on ads. Then honestly, we found a sweet spot in $20,000 to $30,000 a month on ads where it was getting great leads and appointments and great opportunities coming in. We were signing enough clients that it didn't overwhelm the back end, and we were selling these people into recurring offers on the back end. So it was just a good growth vehicle for the business long term. I mean, obviously we went from $20,000 to $400,000 a month in 12 months. It's almost too fast for some people. So you don't need to just scale that ad budget. If you build a very lean and efficient system and kind of match how fast you want to grow with how many, clients you want coming through the door with the back end, and just making sure the back end and the front end are always matching. That's why me and Diego love this offer, love this growth desk offer, because we are working on the front end and back end of your offer in real time to make sure we don't hit any of these massive bottlenecks or run into any of these massive mistakes. But anyways, we funnel all of this ad traffic we tried a different number of funnels and landing page styles. We tried direct to a VSL with an actual calendared below, so they could literally just book below. We did an application funnel. We did a type form funnel. We also did what some people call the Hydra funnel, which is just direct lead forms and funneling a ton of leads in for our lead forms, because we honestly had a very efficient setting team that we got a ton of leads through lead forms. About 30 to 40% of those people would book calls right off the bat. And then our setting team was able to get around 60% of overall lead flow coming in, actually booking calls, which was insane because we're getting a lower cost per lead. Or you can go, the extreme opposite end with type form, where we are doing, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 qualifying questions. And the end of those qualifying questions, depending on what they put in, I think those would actually be 9, because this would be the contact form fill. They're getting routed to different calendars. So at our peak, we had about 6 closers on our team with a sales manager, and we were routing people either to setters, to our top end closers, or directly to, kind of the middle of the road closers. And people have built extremely complicated systems around this. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it's just filtering in qualified leads and getting the best appointments for the best people. We don't need to build a big closing team. You can actually just do like a 1 or 2 person closing team, funnel people in consistently, and grow your offer over time. When we're speaking with you, understanding your goals, understanding exactly where you're at, we can go over all of that stuff, because not everybody just wants to, I don't even want to just build this massive team, scale. We want to be very strategic in everything we do and make sure your goals and values are aligned with what we are trying to accomplish to grow your business sustainably for the long term. So whenever leads get generated, we have our indoctrination sequence and our new sales sequence. So regardless if they book a call, whenever we did type form to Calendly, we got higher qualified people, but we got less people, higher cost, and about, honestly, like 80% of them were booking calls. So, there is something to be said for just driving high qualified people. But at the time we had this 6-person closing team. So they wanted volume. Like, these people are really hungry. So, you can kind of go for volume, or you can go for extreme quality. And you can see here, this is when we were using the Go high level scheduler and pushing for volume. If you do Typeform to Calendly, you get a lot higher qualified people, less people, more expensive people. It's really just the game that you want to play. We played more of a volume game, but we tried both. We tested a ton, $350,000 in ad spend. I know that's not a ton for some people, but we were able to generate $4.2 million in revenue, testing all these different strategies and figuring out what worked best for us and for this offer. And after they schedule an appointment, they see the ad, they head to the application page, they fill out an application, they would book a call. We can do volume-based or like extreme quality, whatever you're really looking for at the time. From there, we have our confirmation page best practices, where on the confirmation page, just like on this confirmation page, if you're on one, we have value-based videos, we have educational videos, we have testimonials, and then we have kind of drive people to that confirmation page to try and get consumption up before the call, which we'll head to in just a second, because we had a whole strategy around that, which, again, a lot of people talk about this consumption before the call strategy, and not many people are actually executing it properly or at a high level. So whenever people book a call, we want to make sure we have great confirmation page best practices, backend funnel optimization, which there's just a bunch of small things that you need to be able to do in your CRM when you're running a call funnel or whatever funnel type you're running, that, once again, not a lot of people are in the trenches. Operators know, like, these small adjustments. And when we're training virtual assistants on our team, it would become sometimes difficult, because small, tiny things can make a big, big difference in the funnel. So there's a lot of, just small checklists that we want to have optimized for when we're doing the back-end funnel. Of course, we have our new appointment show rate optimization sequence, and that's going to be, all the best practices like value dense emails, back-end sales assets, paid remarketing, content absorption. Of course, there's a no-show flow if they didn't show up. If they did show up, we had advanced API pixel conditioning set up. And depending on the volume of calls and what you're trending for, you want to make sure that the best calls and the best people are getting fed back to the actual pixel. And that's going to depend on the volume of calls you're booking, what your overall goals are. But we can move that trigger for the pixel as far down in. I mean, of course, we're going to have purchase events, but you can have actual shown calls. You could do it even as far as shown calls that were qualified. So you can do these deeper funnel of events that, most people aren't even, optimizing for any of this stuff. But, when you're actually trying to drive qualified calls and you're trying to scale a team, or you're trying to drive more revenue without building a bigger team, hey, let's just get more qualified people so I don't have to have 6 closers and 5 setters, right? So there's a lot of different strategies you could do there. One thing I don't see a lot of people talk about is email deliverability. And then there's also, send blue for SMS. But when you're actually, sending these SMS sequences and sending these email sequences to new leads, to appointments, to your newsletter, to all these things, email deliverability is so important. Not many people talk about this, but there's a lot of small things we need to do in account to ensure our emails are actually getting delivered, our emails are actually getting opened. SMS as well is, are we having our setters and closers personally messaging people, or are we using, the CRM texting feature? If we're using the CRM texting feature, could we use send blue to send blue text messages? And there's pluses and minuses for all of this stuff. And like I said, we tried it all. One thing I want to discuss is we were running a cold traffic offer. That means consumption is low on the front end. People see an ad, they see testimonials, they see results, they drive into this application page. And from there, a lot of them are booking in calls, and we are doing volume of calls or quality of calls. But these people don't know us. They didn't, absorb tons of organic content on the front end. Not everybody has that luxury. So what we need to ensure is that we have back-end content systems that are making sure we get as much organic consumption in front of these calls as possible, building as much as trust as possible. If we're doing a cold traffic offer, you might have the benefit of having more of an organic presence and you just haven't done paid yet. But keep in mind, depending on how far you want to go, your organic presence is going to get saturated at a certain point. And at that point, your organic presence serves as an asset or a vehicle to educate colder prospects, get them caught up quickly. So having an organic brand, organic presence is huge. If you don't, we can kind of emulate this organic marketing process. And, shout out to Jeremy Haynes. If you've watched any of his stuff, he was one of the original, originators of this idea. but actually forcing consumption of the organic process through paid, through value dense emails. So let's go through the whole process of what we did. Whenever somebody booked a call, we actually have a campaign that's running that is forcing these creatives down people's throats and essentially just ensuring that our prospects are seeing our organic content before the call. And we made a lot of dedicated content that was just for that. Some of it was actually running our VSLs, so like our actual long form VSL in front of people. We had a full onboarding and educational course to new clients. And we're going over, like I said, it was a cold calling offer. So we actually would remarket them with calls of what our cold callers sounded like. We had a video of me breaking down what the leads and appointments looked like from the cold callers. We had videos on why agents or potential partners do and don't succeed with us. So, questions that prospects might actually deeply have and want to know, and not just showing the good, but showing the bad as well. So really, honestly, just going through, testimonials to build trust, but showing the organic content and just showing that you're an expert and going through all of this stuff makes a massive difference when you're trying to grow an offer profitably and ensure people, number one, show up to the call. Number two, they know what the heck you're selling and they know more about who you are, and just overall being a little more warmed up and qualified when they're ready to speak with you. So it's a lot of benefits to running this type of strategy. And once again, a lot of people talk about this strategy or say, hey, that's a great idea, but very few operators are actually going to be able to come into the trenches and ensure you're executing this properly without making all the mistakes you could make. Another one, when we're talking about value dense emails and email sequences, getting over to prospects, which we talked about here, what are we actually creating in these email sequences? Well, we just made a big content mode on everything we'd want our prospect to know before our call. Okay, let's turn all of these different videos, all these different testimonials, all this educational content into emails. And one mistake, we made initially, and a lot of people make, is in these value dense emails, we just drove people, we just teased a solution and then drove people to, watch this video. But what you actually want to do is write out that email, because we noticed a lot of people were actually opening the email and consuming it, but not many people were clicking. Some of these educational videos had like a 15% link click-through rate on an email, which is absolutely insane. Like 15% of people that opened it were watching the video. However, what's most important is just getting consumption. And so actually transcribing all these videos, breaking down the core concepts, writing out extremely educational, informative emails in there is very, very useful. And at the end of the day, we are driving a large volume of creatives. We're testing all this. We're testing our landing pages. Then we are driving organic consumption on the back end. Of course, what is the goal of all of this? It's to establish organic consumption prior to the call and speaking with our team. What this helps is bring in more clients, increase our show rate and close rates, making our acquisition more profitable over time with a compounding effect. Because the average sales cycle could take a little bit longer. So not only are we going to be more profitable in those first 30 days, those first 60 days, but we're actually going to start having more people come back to us over time that might not have closed. And there's a couple strategies we run there. But for example, having a YouTube channel and YouTube subscribers and posting value-driven content and lead magnets, people that might have came in through our cold traffic, now that they're in our ecosystem and we're running this, and then they see our YouTube content, they become a YouTube subscriber, now they're on our email list. So guess what? They're getting our value-driven newsletters every single week. They're getting offers and promotions. Again, if they see our organic content, now they become an Instagram, Facebook follower, and then they're getting value-driven, unique content that also is driving them over to long form. And when you have an ecosystem like this, we're just trying to make our cold traffic spend dollar for dollar as efficient as possible. Every single person that comes in through here, we want to close as many of them as well as we can over time. We want to be able to just make that engine as efficient as possible. It all starts with making as good as video ads as you can, as good of a landing page as you can, qualifying questions, the proper backend email and SMS sequences, building the proper remarketing campaigns, building the proper organic ecosystem. All of this is extremely important for building a long-term offer, for building an audience, for getting something that grows and compounds over time, rather than just, hey, let's go from $20,000 a month to $50,000 a month in ad spend. Because I know a lot of times when we were scaling this offer specifically, a lot of times the sales team would pressure us to, hey, let's just go from $30,000 in spend to $40,000 a month. But I knew that if we invested more time into making better ads, or if we took, say, that $10,000 we're just going to spend more on ads, and we put that into better ad creative, into better backend systems, into these remarketing campaigns, instead of just doing brute force, increased spend, ROAS goes down, and we just get a bunch of volume, costs go up. There's a lot more efficient ways to play the game, and I just want to make sure whenever we're working with our partners that we are playing this game as efficiently as possible and we're checking all these boxes. The only way that I have found consistently to do that is for me and any of my partners to be in the trenches together, not just advising at a high level, because so much goes into the small, minute details of actually making this work. And even just having one or a number of mistakes can ruin this entire engine and just break everything, and it doesn't work anymore. And it's extremely hard to find people that actually know how the heck to run this, to be honest. So what do we do for our closing and setting team for when all of this stuff eventually filters in? So they come and then it's actually time for the call. Well, on the setting side, I just want to talk briefly about that. With the setting team, our biggest KPIs was speed to lead, their active time, the amount of dials, and their talk time. Those were all their front end metrics. I called them effort metrics. I'm not even going to analyze your back end performance or talk to you about lead quality or this or that. If, hey, you're only on the dialer for 90 minutes today, I'm not going to, the only thing I should be talking to you about is spending more time on the dialer. That was a big frustration point. We were able to push that through once we said effort metrics first, and then we can talk about lead quality. We can talk about the conversations you're having. We can break down calls, but I'm not going to break down any calls with you if I see you're only working for 90 minutes a day. Like, what the heck am I even paying you for? So we got really strong on those front end metrics. And then of course we have back end metrics, like, are you getting 3 to 5 sets a day? Are the sets that you're having, your sets should have a much higher show rate. So if our default show rate is 50%, our appointment setter show rate should be around 80%. And then just from an infrastructure standpoint, we've tried a lot, like the Go high level dialer. It does work, and you don't need to build like this massive system around it of, hey, we need to get Send Blue to make our calls, or you don't need, like, we got the base Go high level dialer. We got like up to $200,000 a month just using the base Go high level dialer with no changes. I will say there are a couple small things you can do on the Go high level dialer to get a higher pickup rate and conversion rate. Like there's areas where you can register your phone numbers so they don't come up as spam. There's areas you can actually take and register those phone numbers so they actually show up with your business name, not within Go high level. Send Blue, we tested that, tried that. You might have heard a lot about Dialer or Dialer.io. We tried that. We really, really liked it. And I would highly recommend any setting teams use Dialer.io if you're getting enough lead volume and you're actually scaling. So Dialer.io is what I would highly, highly recommend if you are pursuing mass scale, or, it just makes your setting team way more efficient, and you can actually track everything they're doing and their speed to lead and all that. So we found a ton of success with the setting team on Dialer.io. One last thing on the setting team that we did try was like AI setters. I don't think it's there yet, especially for high ticket offers when we're trying to lead with trust. We have seen some success with it. And honestly, as you're trying to scale more profitably, I think, you could replace your setters with AI and then just have it go to closers and run more of a tighter qualification process to take setters out if you don't have to pay setters, or you don't have to pay them any commission to, affect your bottom line. So a lot of conversations I could have about setters with you all. Closers, strict pre-call nurture sequences, getting them over value assets. So for our closers, it was heavy on actual making contact with the prospect manually before the call. So sending, leaving them a nice voicemail, like actually looking over that appointment's application and calling them and leaving them a nice voicemail. Texting them and sending a voice note. We did try and get our closers to do the selfie videos. I still believe in the selfie videos, but the very least, we had to get them to send voice notes. Another thing is sending actual value assets. So if we had testimonials or educational content that lined up with the application of what the person had pushed through, well, we want our closers sending those value-driven assets before the call. Another thing that we tried, which I'm a big fan of, but it's operationally complex, is the group chat method, where the closer, sometimes we'd have the setter create a group chat manually with the closer, and that increased our show rate. So really depends on what kind of show rate problem you have. We've tested a lot of it. So, I could go in the weeds with that. But typically we had a 20% close rate KPI. I know, 30% is great for industry standard. Like I said, a lot of times with realtors and with this cold calling offer, we're doing like a mass scale, mass volume push. So we're getting all kinds of applications, all kinds of calls. Our closers wanted as many calls on the calendar as possible. So our 20% close rate KPI was what we were able to maintain. And obviously it wasn't the most efficient thing. And I think we could have, gotten that close rate up higher. But again, $20,000 to $400,000 a month. Not everything needs to be perfect. If your sales team isn't as good, you can check all of these boxes and your sales team is going to do a lot better without having to get a better sales team. And then eventually the sales team will become the bottleneck, and you can analyze that. For analyzing all of our setting and closing and appointment data, we used Monday.com. Big fan of using this, and I can nerd out on Monday.com about all this all day. Diego, my backend partner, huge fan of Monday.com. We build a lot of stuff out there. It's great for visualizing reports and sending stuff in. You can build a bunch of automations around it. But we would analyze setter and closer performance with Monday.com dashboards and a bunch of automations around there. So overall, if you are trying to profitably run a marketing engine, it's just, you can't just get a quote unquote media buyer or somebody off of Upwork or Fiverr. You need somebody that understands ad creation, that understands this full funnel process, that understands the funnels, the VSL, the backend remarketing assets, all of the automations and connection points. And lastly, somebody that deeply understands financial modeling and can go through your financial model. Because that's one of the first things that we do whenever we meet with somebody, is actually doing deep financial modeling with them, of going through what all your offers are, what our cost per lead is, what our cost per call, crunching through all these numbers to see what our actual return will be, what your net is going to be, what your final net is going to be, if there's any service operating costs. One of the biggest things that Diego is really going to be working with you on is getting upsell, resell, continuation offers, and downsells. Because if we can, for example, if we're selling an $8,000 product and we can acquire a customer for $2,000 and then say our final net there's $5,000, well, we just traded $2,000 for $5,000 net, $2,000 to $8,000 total, but $2,000 to $5,000 net, which works great and it sounds good. But what if we can increase the LTV from $8,000 to $30,000 to $50,000? Diego is an expert at crafting these client success systems, the retention systems, the upsell systems, because ultimately the first conversation we need to have about advertising before we discuss your creatives and your funnel and this and that, and all this stuff that I can nerd out about for hours, it's the financial modeling of your business and your offers, because we should be able to do the financial modeling. And based on the financial modeling, we can say, hey, advertising is, I don't want to put $1 in advertising until we fix this financial model, because that's how detailed it should be. And that's what you should do before you launch any offer or anything along those lines. It's just so important to do financial modeling. And honestly, this thing right here will probably get you the biggest return out of anything, is actually doing detailed financial modeling on all of your offers and your offer ladder before growing and selling or doing anything with advertising or trying to scale. So I hope that this was helpful. I could go in any more depth that you'd want. So if you are booking a call with us, just ask me anything about this. It was a real pleasure scaling this on the front end, building all the ads, building all the marketing engine, getting results for all these clients, scaling up the offer. And ultimately, this is how heavily involved we want to be with all of our partners here at ScaleWith-io, is actually being in the trenches, because I know what it takes to succeed, and I don't want to be operating on a deal unless I know personally we are doing what it takes to succeed. I don't want to be on a deal where I can't control, oversee, have insights, and work closely with you on this entire engine. Because honestly, without being able to oversee this whole thing, somebody pushing buttons in an ad account isn't going to do shit for you, honestly, if you don't have all of this stuff accounted for. 99% of the media buying is automated these days, and it's really, all of this is what's actually most important in growing your business. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. And if you are interested in partnering with us, growing your offer, scaling your offer, you have any other questions, book that call with us and I'll see you on there.